chaos. We are talking about Argentina assistant coach Roberto Ayala, a member of the management staff who is expected to help control situations when emotions explode. That is why the allegation against Ayala stands out. Coaches are supposed to help calm players, keep order, and stop a heated confrontation from getting worse. Instead, footage from after the final whistle reportedly shows Ayala striking Dani Olmo during the post-match confrontation. FIFA's disciplinary process will determine exactly how that incident is classified, but the fact that a member of the coaching staff became directly involved makes this case especially serious. And now, Ayala's situation gets even more complicated. FIFA reportedly charged him with 1 count of assault, carrying a minimum 3-match touchline ban. Under that sanction, he could be barred from the technical area and potentially face additional restrictions around Argentina matches depending on the final disciplinary ruling. But what really pushed this story into another level was Ayala's response afterward. He released an apology, but in that same statement, he argued that the contact was more of a push than a punch and claimed Olmo had verbally provoked him. So instead of the apology ending the controversy, it opened up another argument over what actually happened. Then, Dani Olmo responded publicly with 2 words. He's lying. Olmo did not leave it there either, adding, "What defines us is not the mistake, but the courage to accept everything with humility, sincerity, and dignity." That was a sharp public response from the player involved, directly challenging Ayala's version of events and turning what could have remained an internal disciplinary matter into a very public dispute. For a coach whose role includes keeping control when emotions are running wild, even a minimum 3-match touchline ban would be a serious consequence. FIFA's disciplinary decision now matters more than the back-and-forth statements, because the evidence and formal ruling will determine exactly where responsibility lands. Then we get to Thiago Almada. His alleged involvement has received far less attention than Paredes, Molina, or Ayala, but he has reportedly been charged with 1 count of unsporting behaviour. That carries a potential minimum 1-match suspension, with a formal warning also possible depending on FIFA's final decision. Thiago Almada's case sits in a very different category from the accusations involving Paredes and Molina. Footage reportedly shows Almada caught up in the wider confrontation, surrounded by the pushing, shouting, and general chaos, but without the same specific alleged physical acts that appear in the more serious cases. His charge reflects that difference. 1 count of unsporting behaviour, with a possible minimum 1-match suspension or potentially a warning depending on FIFA's final ruling. He may not be the biggest name in this disciplinary story, but his inclusion still matters. It means yet another Argentina player has been pulled into the fallout from everything that happened after the final whistle. Almada will also eventually return to his club, carrying the attention that comes with being formally involved in a FIFA disciplinary case connected to a World Cup final. But now we reach easily one of the strangest twists in the entire case. Gavi. Yes, the same Gavi who was directly involved in one of the most heated moments of the confrontation. Barcelona midfielder Gavi has reportedly been charged with 1 count of unsporting behaviour, potentially carrying a minimum 1-match suspension. And that immediately raises eyebrows when you remember what happened during the clash. According to the allegations against Paredes, he brought Gavi to the ground, held him by the collar, and then pushed him in the face while Gavi was already down. Yet despite being on the receiving end of those alleged actions, Gavi himself is now also facing disciplinary scrutiny. And this is exactly why Gavi's charge has become such a controversial part of the story. In the disciplinary case against Paredes, Gavi is described as being on the receiving end of several separate alleged actions. He was brought to the ground, held by the collar, and then pushed in the face while already down. FIFA reviewed the footage and examined what happened during that chaotic confrontation. Yet, after reviewing the wider incident, FIFA reportedly decided Gavi's own conduct also deserved scrutiny. In effect, the message was, actually, we have something for you too. He has reportedly been hit with 1 count of unsporting behaviour, potentially carrying a 1-match suspension. And the optics are messy. Gavi can be the target of alleged misconduct and still be punished if FIFA believes his own response separately crossed the disciplinary line. Those two things are not automatically contradictory under the rules, but when you put the potential punishments side by side, people are obviously going to ask questions. Paredes could be looking at a minimum of 10 matches, based on the charges previously outlined, while Garvey could receive 1 match for his own alleged conduct during the same confrontation. That contrast has turned what was already a heated disciplinary case into an even bigger debate over how FIFA applies its rules. And the fallout does not stop with individual players or coaches. The Argentine Football Association itself is reportedly facing scrutiny under multiple provisions of FIFA's disciplinary framework, with allegations connected to conduct across several matches during the tournament, rather than only the chaos following the final. And this is where the case expands, from individual players to the Argentine Football Association itself. Article 13 concerns using a sporting event for demonstrations of a non-sporting nature. In this case, that reportedly relates to the Falklands banner displayed after the semi-final against England, an incident that immediately attracted attention beyond football. Article 14 covers team misconduct. That is where the confrontation after the final whistle comes into the picture, including the wider behavior of players and staff rather than only the individual actions already discussed. Then there is Article 15, covering discrimination and discriminatory abuse. Reports have connected that part of the case to Enzo Fernandez's racist chant video, alleged discriminatory chants or gestures involving supporters, the incident involving ISHO speed, and the Israeli flag reportedly waved toward members of Egypt's coaching staff. These are separate incidents with different circumstances, so each allegation would need to be judged on its own evidence. Article 17 concerns order and security at matches. That reportedly includes delayed kickoffs, alleged failures to follow match or security protocols, objects thrown by supporters, reports of beer bottles being thrown toward Cape Verde fans, and inappropriate messages allegedly displayed across multiple games. Put it together, and FIFA is not examining just one ugly night. The disciplinary picture being described stretches across several matches and multiple sections of FIFA's code, potentially exposing the AFA to fines, formal warnings, reprimands, crowd control requirements, and restrictions on supporter attendance. More severe measures, depending on the findings and applicable rules, could potentially include matches being played behind closed doors. And because Argentina is scheduled to be involved in the 2030 World Cup, any suggestion of consequences affecting its hosting role would instantly become a massive football story. That possibility should not be treated as confirmed unless FIFA formally announces such a measure. It also lands while FIFA faces separate public scrutiny over its commercial relationships and future World Cup business, adding another politically sensitive layer to an already complicated disciplinary situation. Now put every one of those numbers together, because this is where the true scale of the fallout becomes impossible to ignore. Based on the minimum punishment